all my dear class 6 student. Now you have a video. In this video, now you are going to learn English Honeysuckle lesson number 3. The name of the lesson, Taro's Rewards. This is a story about a thoughtful and loving son whose name is Taro. So he worked very hard to fulfill his parents' wishes and gets some unexpected help. So now let's start reading the story. A young woodcutter named Taro lived with his mother and father on a lonely hillside. Say, there was a woodcutter whose name is Taro. Say, lived along with his parents on a lonely hillside. All day long, he chopped wood in the forest. Say, all day long means most time of the day. Taro chop wood in the forest. Chop means to cut wood into pieces. Though he worked very hard, he earned very little money. Say, even though Taro worked very hard, he can earn a little money. This made him sad, for he was a thoughtful son and wanted to give his old parents everything they needed. Say, as Taro was a thoughtful son, he wanted to fulfill all his parents' wishes. So he was a little bit disappointed with the little money he had. One evening, when Taro and his parents were sitting in a corner of their hut, a strong wind began to blow. Say, one evening, when Taro, along with his parents, were sitting in the corner of their hut, a strong wind began to blow. It whistled through the crack of the hut, and everyone felt very cold. So the cold wind entered inside their hut. Then everybody who lived inside the hut felt cold. Suddenly, Taro's father said, "I wish I had a cup of sack. It would warm me and do my old heart good." Then, suddenly at that time, Taro's father said to himself that, "I wish I had a cup of sack. It would warm me and do my old heart good." Taro's father wanted to have a cup of sack in order to keep warm his body. This made Taro sadder than ever, for the heartwarming drink called sake was very expensive. Sake was a popular Japanese drink. Say, his father's word made Taro sadder than ever, as the heartwarming drink called sake was very expensive. Expensive means costly. How do I earn more money? He asks himself. Then Taro asks himself, how could he earn more money? How do I get a little sack for my poor old father? Then further he asks himself, how did he get a little sack for his poor old father? He decided to work harder than before. Then Taru decided to work harder than before. Next morning, Taru jumped out of bed earlier than usual and made his way to the forest. Then, on the very next morning, Taru woke up earlier than the other days. Then, he went to the forest. He soft and cut as the sun climbed, and soon he was so warm that he had to take off his jacket. Then, in the forest, Taru soft and cut, soft and cut as the sun climbed. So he worked very hard in the forest to earn more money. Say, as soon as the sun climbed up, his body gets warmer, so he decided to take off his jacket. His mouth was dry and his face was wet with sweat. As he worked very hard, Taru's face was wet with sweat, and his mouth was also dry. My poor old father, he thought. Then at that time, he thought of his poor father. If only he was as warm as I. And with that, he began to sob even faster, thinking of the extra money he must earn to buy the sack to warm the old man's bones. Say, in order to buy sack for his father to keep his body warm, Taru began to sob even faster than before. Then suddenly Taru stopped sobbing. What was that sound he heard? Could it be Could it possibly be rushing water? Then suddenly Taro stopped chopping the wood when he heard the sound of rushing water. Taro could not remember ever seeing or hearing a rushing stream in that part of the forest. Then Taro could not remember ever seeing or hearing a rushing stream in that part of the forest. He was thirsty. The axe dropped out of his hands and he ran in the direction of the sound. Then, at that time, as Taro worked very hard to chop the wood, he was very thirsty, so he dropped his axe out of his hand and he began to run towards the direction of the sound. Taro saw a beautiful little waterfall hidden behind a rock. Then this time, Taro saw a beautiful little waterfall hidden behind a rock. Kneeling at a place where the water flowed quietly, he cupped a little in his hands and put it to his lips. Say, on seeing the water, Taro kneeling down and he cupped a little in his hand. That means he take a little quantity of the water in his hand, then he try to drink it. Was it water or was it sand? Then he tested it again and again. So when he drank the water, he felt surprised and he asked himself, was it water or was it sand? He tested it again and again. Then Taro tested it again and again. And always it was the delicious sand instead of cold water. Actually, the water was not an ordinary water. Say it was the delicious sand. Taro quickly filled the pitcher he had with him and hurried home. The old man was delighted with the sand. Then Taro quickly filled the pitcher he had with him and hurried home. Then Taro took out his pitcher and he fills his pitcher with the sand and he returned back home hurriedly and he offered the sack to his father and his father was delighted to drink the sack. After only one swallow of the liquid, he stopped shivering and did a little dance in the middle of the floor. Say just after taking one swallow of the liquid, that means just after taking one swallow of the sack, the Poor old Taru's father stopped shivering and did a little dance in the middle of the floor. So, on getting the sack, Taru's father celebrated by dancing on the middle of the floor. That afternoon, a neighborhood stopped by for a visit. Say, on that same day, in the afternoon, a neighbor of Taru visit to their hut. Taru's father politely offered her a cup of the sack. Then Taru's father offered the neighbor a cup of sack. The lady drank it greedily and thanked the old man. Then Taru's neighbor was a lady who drank the sack greedily and thanked Taru's father for the offering. Then Taru told her the story of the magic waterfall. Then Taru told to his neighbor about the story of the magic waterfall, where the water is not the ordinary water, it was sad. Thanking them for the delicious drink, she left in a hurry. Then the lady thanked Taru and his father for the delicious drink. Then the lady left their hut hurriedly. By nightfall, she had spread the story throughout the whole village. Then, in the night of the same day, the lady had spread the story of the magic waterfall throughout the whole village. That evening, there was a long procession of visitors to the woodcutter's house. Say on that evening, say there was a long procession of visitors to Taru's house. Each man heard the story of the waterfall and took a sip of the sack. Then everybody tasted and heard the story of the waterfall. Say everybody tasted the sack and they heard the story of the magic waterfall. In less than an hour, the pitcher was empty. Then, less than an hour, the pitcher of Taru was empty. Next morning, Taru started for work even earlier than the morning before. Then on the next morning, Taru woke up earlier than the morning before. He carried with him the largest pitcher he owned, for he intended first of all to go to the waterfall. So at this time, Taro carried with him the largest pitcher he owned. He intended to go to the waterfall to take the sack. When he reached it, he found, to his great surprise, all his neighbors there. So when he reached near the waterfall, he found that all his neighbors were there. They were carrying pitchers, jars, bucket, anything they could find to hold the magic sack. So all their neighbors, all his neighbors were carrying pitchers, jars, buckets, anything they could find to hold the magic sack. Say, then one villager knelt and he held his mouth under the waterfall to drink. Then one of the villagers tasted the water of the waterfall. He drank again and again and then shouted angrily, "Water, nothing but water." Then the villager drank the water again and again. Then he shouted angrily, "Water, nothing but water." Then the waterfall was simply an ordinary water, not the sack. Others also tried, but there was no sack, only cold water. Then all the other villagers also tasted the water of the waterfall, but to them they found that the waterfall was not sack. It was an ordinary cold water. "We have been tricked," shouted the villagers. Then all the villagers shouted that Taro had tricked to them. "Where is Taro? Let us drown him in this waterfall." Then the villagers, with angry, shouted and asked, "Where is Taro? Let us drown him in this waterfall." But Taro had been wise enough to slip behind a rock. When he saw how things were going, he was nowhere to be found. Then, on hearing the neighbor's word, Taro, being a wise young man, decided to hide behind a rock. And the villagers could not find him. Muttering their anger and disappointment, the villagers left the place one by one. Then the disappointed villagers, with anger, left the place one by one. Taro came out from his hiding place. Then, after all the villagers left the waterfall, Taro came out from his hiding place. Was it true He wondered, was the sack a dream? Then Taro asked himself, was it true? Say whether the villagers' words were true. He wondered, was the sack a dream? Whether the sack was a dream, he asked to himself. Once more he caught a little liquid in his hand and put it to his lips. Then Taro this time take the liquid of the magic waterfall in his hand. Then he tasted it. It was the same fine sack. Then this time to Taro, he found that it was the same sack he tasted earlier. To the thoughtful son, the magic waterfall gave the delicious sack. Say to the thoughtful Taro, the magic waterfall gave him the delicious sack. To everyone else, it gave only cold water. Say to everyone else, the magic waterfall gave only the cold water. But to Taro, the magic waterfall gave the delicious sack. The story of Taro and his magic waterfall reached the emperor of Japan. Then the story of Taro and the magic waterfall reached the emperor of Japan. He sent for the young woodcutter and rewarded him with 20 pieces of gold for having been so good and kind. Then the emperor of Japan rewarded Taro with 20 pieces of gold for having been so good and kind. Then he named the most beautiful fountain in the city after Taro. Then the emperor of Japan named the most beautiful fountain in the city after Taro. This said the emperor was to encourage all children to honor and obey their parents. So, in order to encourage all the children to honor and to obey their parents, the emperor of Japan rewarded Taro with 20 pieces of gold for having been so good and kind to his parents. The moral of the story, Taro's reward, is that one should work hard to fulfill the dreams and the wishes of the parents. So, all my dear student, you must work hard to fulfill the dreams and the wishes of your parents. Now we have a poem. The name of the poem, The Quarrel. It is common for brothers and sisters to quarrel, although sometimes they may not even be able to say why they quarrel. But how long do such quarrels last? How do they end? So now let's read the poem, the quarrel. Then after that, I will explain. So listen carefully. I quarrel with my brother. I don't know what about. One thing led to another, and somehow we fell out. The start of it was slight. The end of it was strong. He said he was right. I knew he was wrong. We hated one another. The afternoon turned black. Then suddenly my brother turned me on the back and said, "Oh, come along, we can go on all night." I was in the wrong, so he was in the right. Written by Iliano Fazion. Again, I will read out the poem. Listen carefully. I quarrel with my brother. I don't know what about. One thing led to another, and somehow we fell out. The start of it was slight. The end of it was strong. He said he was right. I knew he was wrong. We hated one another. The afternoon turned black. Then suddenly my brother thumped me on the back and said, "Oh, come along, we can't go on all night." I was in the wrong, so he was in the right. Written by Eleanor Fazion. Now I will explain the first stanza. So listen carefully. Look at the first stanza. I quarrel with my brother. I don't know what about. One thing led to another, and somehow we fell out. The start of it was slight. The end of it was strong. He said he was right. I knew he was wrong. So in this first stanza, the boy had a fight with his brother. Both of them were fighting and were not even aware of the cause of the fight was. The fight was happening because of a series of things. One thing was giving way to another. While fighting, both fell down. In the beginning, the fight was modest and was not very serious. But gradually, it grew intense and became a serious issue. His brother said that he was right, whereas the narrator was thinking himself on the right side. Then look at the second stanza. We hated one another. The afternoon turned black. Then suddenly my brother thumped me on the back and said, "Oh, come along. We can go on all night." I was in the wrong, so he was in the right. Then, in this last stanza, what the poet expressed is that in the noon, the fight became serious, and both started hating each other. Then they did not like one another. All of a sudden, Boyd's brother hit him on the back and asked him to get along, as it was not the right thing to pull the matter throughout the night. He also declared humbly that he was wrong, which proved his generosity. This moved the poet's heart and realized that he was wrong. Say, at the end of the poem, the poet realized that he was wrong. Then this poem is written by Eleanor Fazion. So, my dear student, try to read the poem. Then for this lesson number 3, Taro's the word and the poem The Quarrel, all the solved question and answer will be provided by your subject teacher. Thank you for watching my video.